To introduce these two people, I think one of the most amusing anecdotes that came in advance of them was this one that occurred the other day. In fact, it was in the O'Keefe Center program, and it was all about a lady inquiring about what was showing while she was visiting in Toronto, and it was mentioned that this particular show was coming to town. The name Bill Graham came up, and suddenly she hesitated, and she thought, well, I don't know, maybe her friends wouldn't be too interested in seeing that evangelist, especially since he will be preaching about airplanes, dead people, all those things. It took a little while for O'Keefe Center to explain that the Bill Graham that has to do with the Jefferson airplane is not Billy Graham. In fact, if you see him here, and I'd like you to, oh, you are, you're already looking at him, you don't look like the kind of man I would call Billy. I think Bill is a little more formal.
I'm sorry about that name in general, but Bill would have to do. Or
Zach would be good.
Zach,
Rock, like that.
Mm-hmm.
This is Grace
Sam.
Slick in the center with the glasses and reading her reviews. What do you think of the coverage today in the papers about this performance last night, Grace?
They're big and flashy.
Like
Very
the show?
well received.
Yes,
Yeah.
isn't that interesting? I wanted to ask you something, Bill. I watched you last night. I never saw a more concerned man in the aisles as you were during the first 2 or 3 numbers by the Jefferson airplane, and I want to know the upshot of your concern and also the result of your concern. What happened?
I have a bad habit of always being concerned about the group.
He's always like that, even at his own establishment, Fillmore. He runs around with 9 clocks on and that countenance that you said, smile. He just looks like that.
I think the problem is whether it doesn't sound right, but someone, when you have a few thousand people together, somebody has to try to make sure that the sound is right, the lights are right, the people on stage are presented as best as possible, and that person, it's very, if you're smiling, then you're not really being real. The result of last night's, let's say, concern was that we were treated pretty nicely.
What about this dancing business? Because obviously you're used to this in San Francisco, and the fact that you do now concerts in auditoriums where people sit, was the dancing not anticipated, that people would want to do this?
Well,
does the management not be made aware that this is liable to happen?
They were made aware of it, that we were going to have some dancing afterwards, and I said there might be some dancing in the aisles. We would not start it, although we have a bad habit of saying we're not going to, and then we're going to get naughty and we say, why don't you get up and dance? But this is the first time we've done something outside of San Francisco, which was a straight concert, and we've been waging a very long fight, an anti-concert rock thing, because rock should be moved to a dance to.
But you promote dance concerts, isn't this the term you use for them out in San Francisco?
Yes, so you have your choice. You can sit or you can dance, but the main problem you have is you've looked back on the monster shows, the Monkey concerts, the Beatle concerts, and you've got these kids, you know, like they're strapped to the electric chair and they can't move because King Kong is waiting to take them away. And that shouldn't be. If they want to move, they should be able to. And most of the time, if you're living in a civilized city, let them alone.
Well, all right, you got what, 4 more concerts? 5?
5, I think.
Well, how are you going to handle this?
Same way it went last night.
Yeah.
Don't always expect the worst, and don't stop something that you're not used to.
Well, were you able to convince the authorities in the theater last night? And they let everything go?
Very nice. No major problems.
I know, I had to leave, and that's why I wanted to ask how it turned out, because it looked as if it could have gotten a little ugly, and I was a little worried.
Well, it's very easy to say, you know, to the mass, well, you know, we want to have good relationships between America and Canada, and therefore they treated us. That's not the case. They were very, very nice. Mr. Walker is a very congenial man, very understanding, and you stop to think of how far O'Keefe went, not how far we went. That's the big thing. We've gone to places that are as posh, you know, and as large and as famous in the States to rent. Oh, God, no. You know, look at your hair, and look at your feet, and look at your garb, and look at who you'd attract. Well, look at what O'Keefe did, and I'm very, very grateful, seriously.
Grace, you haven't said much so far. Is this the way you are normally?
Sleep.
She's tired.
I just got up. I straightened my head around a little bit.
Are there rumors that you're leaving?
Yes, there are.
Are they true?
No.
Well, that settled that. Yeah, this preceded you before you came. Grace Slick was going to leave the Jefferson airplane, and I wondered how they started, or do these things inevitably start with people who suddenly reach?
No, it started with me, and I think it's this, for this reason, is that our lead guitar has a thing that he does just for sport. Like if he drops his cigarettes and it annoys him, he says, I quit, I'm leaving, I'm going to Alaska. Now that struck me funny one time, and I very often say that. Now if you say that backstage, when you're with a musical group, people very often take it wrong. And I say that a lot, so somebody probably heard me say that and thought I was serious.
do me a favor, just for a moment? Would you take the dark glasses off? I want
Sure.
the people all over the country to see you. You have beautiful eyes. She is a
Can't see
absolutely
without them.
gorgeous creature on stage.
Would
as
you
I
say
watched
that to
her. No,
me? Would you say that to me? Or?
You keep them on there, Bill. I think. No, you can get back to Grace. I just wanted the folks to see exactly
you.
what a lovely person.
It's a prescription.
really are.
You look very fuzzy without these.
Ah, well then I'll let you put them back
Right.
on.
The other thing about leaving, it always has something to do with fame and popularity. The ratio of exaggeration goes on the same pace as, I think, quote, fame goes. If, Dulcie Ginsburg of the EBGBs left, nobody would care less.
This is different from the old big band days. Everyone knew who was going to leave Tommy Dorsey and join Benny Goodman. This was a big thing. The kids followed the movements of all the musicians personally. The kids today aren't that concerned about the members of groups, are they?
I think they are. Yeah. Kids know more than we do. A lot of times when we're planning on doing something, and it doesn't make any difference what it is, before that person has even made up their mind, or sometimes before they've expressed it, they know what you're going to do. Some way they can tell. They can look at you on stage and tell that in 5 minutes you're going to have to go get a drink of water, It's incredible.
You also have the greatest wireless system ever, I think, today. If you have a group in San Francisco, and let's say if one of the people in the plane did leave, if it happened at 10:03, the village in New York would know it at 10:02 somehow or other. It's an incredible thing.
May I describe for those who do not know about this show? You have heard of total involvement in entertainment. You've heard it. In fact, our own McLuhan has really started the ball rolling with this kind of expression. Last night, for the first time, I saw an appeal to all three senses: sight, sound, and smell. Did I even see incense burning up there on the electric organ that you were playing? And even it wafted over the audience. And this is what you're trying to create.
Strong wind.
Yeah, right.
This is what you're trying to create with the psychedelic lights and the rear screen projection and the projectors on each side and these massive, almost cineramic type screens that you put on. That with the sound and the incense. Bill, perhaps in a few words you can describe exactly what it is you're creating.
Decadence.
In a word.
Started off with a very simple phrase a couple of years ago, and it sounds very corny, very simple, but I think that, as far as I'm concerned, that wraps it up. And anything that comes off of that, all the tangents, all the running around, all the maniacal pursuits come off of that, I'd like to see people have a good time. It's a very, very simple thing, and enjoy yourself. I know that's showbiz talk, but when you look at it and you see it work, meaning people are being uninhibited and they're dancing, and they're not so much concerned with what am I wearing, what is he wearing, what steps is he doing, what steps am I doing, who's watching me, am I on camera? I came with a shirt and tie and they came with bare feet. What's the difference? Just let it loose, and the whole thing should be conducive, the dimensional, to making you feel that way. And the only way you're going to feel that way is by relaxing and having a good time.
But at the same time, I feel defiance being expressed in some way, Bill. Is this true?
Well, if you do something, if you're in a hurry, and the highway sign says 50 miles an hour, and you're in a hurry and you're going 100 miles an hour, you're not against the highway patrol. You're not against the man who built that highway. You're in a hurry, so you go faster. That's not defiance. Nonconformity does not mean that you're against something. You're just more for the change than you are for that which is established. And this is all they're doing.
But are you against order?
Me?
Yeah, I'm not. I don't mean you personally. I mean, well, because you are in a curious position. You are an entrepreneur. You're a businessman. You must have some respect for order.
I'm not a businessman.
You're not?
No.
He's the only orderly one around. In fact, we get annoyed with him because he's orderly.
Well, this is my point. I don't know how you
He
handle
drives us at his speed.
a rather free living
And it's got to stop.
and a freewheeling kind of entertainment. I don't know how
All right.
you can handle this.
Let me, if we have the time, usually takes a little longer, but you take what total freedom implies and accept the fact that you cannot do it where you're living. You first accept that and then do the best with trying to change it as you can. Let's say a couple wants to go to a dance hall in the nude. The minute they get there, they'll be arrested when they start to disrobe. They have to accept that fact, either get arrested or get as close to it as possible. So dress in a very flimsy dress, or go as far as you can within the limits of the law. The same thing with drugs, whether we like them or not. Let's say you have a place where people would like to go to. First, they have to accept the fact that you're not allowed to. If you do it in public, that doesn't mean that the proprietor, the owner, or the area, or the police will allow it. The policeman on the beat, for some reason or other, may think that there's nothing wrong with marijuana. But he's got his job to do, and if you're standing on the corner, he's going to arrest you. Whatever you do, accept first what is fact, what is law. And I don't say circumvent, but it's there. Stop breathing, you're going to die. No matter what no matter what you think. You cannot walk on water. Take a boat. Accept certain realities, and they're here. We cannot take O'Keeffe, give everybody a crayon, and say, all right, paint the walls. Not allowed to. You accept that.
So you do accept authority?
No.
You don't accept it?
No. Authority.
After 5 minutes
all right.
You condone it, you must have to, or you'd all be arrested.
No, you have to because then we couldn't have gotten as far as we could. But let's take a good example. Mr. Walker and his staff were very nice. We agreed on certain things that could take place. 2 people started dancing in the aisle last night. One of the ushers, who maybe wasn't instructed properly, stopped them. Well, I went, please don't stop them. He says, well, that's my job. I said, well, you ask him. And well, he didn't know. And we went all the way to the top. And finally, he was told by someone, let them alone. Now, if we accepted the usher's authority, we would have stopped the dancing.
Yeah.
So you've got to force your way through all the muck to get to the man who says, no, let them alone. Somewhere along the line, you've got to accept authority. But where is the good point?
Amazing man. I wish I could have you back when we have more time to discuss this.
We get
whole thing,
nastier as we go along.
We didn't get to talk about the Fillmore Auditorium, where all this originated in San Francisco. I wanted to talk about Grace's part in the group and what her particular influence, you may say, is. But these are all going to have to come later, and I hope maybe the opportunity will arise. Grace Slick of the Jefferson Airplane and the man responsible for the whole unbelievable idea, Bill Graham. Thank you for coming today in this hot sunshine and
Thank
being
you.
with us. We'll see you in a few minutes. Well, in Toronto, it's a little after 12 noon, and for the Grateful Dead to arise at this early hour of the day, I think is a significant thing in itself. There's the reaction of getting so early. In town, in the O'Keeffe Center, we have a concert, the like of which this city has never seen for a long time. It is headlined by the Jefferson Airplane. We talked about this with Bill Graham on a couple of occasions earlier in the week. Also from San Francisco is the group known as the Grateful Dead, and we have 3 of them here, right beside me. Jerome Garcia is the man with the crew cut, right here beside me. Over here is Phil Lesh, who is the blonde one, and Rock Scully over to the extreme right. L-E-C-H. Did I mispronounce it? No. It was all right. All right. Okay. All right. The 3 of you here to discuss for this 15 minutes a little bit about yourselves, your background, your music, and the way of the world. I would like, first of all, from you, Jerome, for what do you speak?
Well, you can call me Jerry.
All right, Jerry. What is it that you really are speaking for and speaking out loud and clear?
Well, breakfast. More coffee. I don't know. I'm not speaking out a way about a thing, you know what I mean? I'm not talking about, do you mean what I represent?
Yeah, you, the rest of the men, the airplane, this area of California, and I'm going to ask you in a moment why California, but what is it you really represent and speak out for the generation that you represent?
Fun.
And that's it?
Sure.
Fun?
Sure.
Does that mean no responsibility?
Well,
have you principles or codes by which you live?
Yeah, I do. I don't know whether or not it means more responsibility, less responsibility. I don't like the idea of responsibility at all. The idea, I mean.
And the reality is even more.
Yeah, but don't you think that responsibility must exist?
Well, I think that if real responsibility did exist, the world would be nicer. If everybody were more responsible, or at least more responsive to each other.
We'd be living
probably
common humanity.
Yeah. You see, what I found about these 3 fellows, now, I approach interviews of this type with groups with a certain amount of trepidation because I'm used to being put down. I'm used to being sneered at, kind of, who is this square that's on this end of the microphone?
Well, we're used to that, too.
But you fellows don't strike me like this. I feel you are essentially nice people, and you have a definite theory about life that you adhere to.
Well, we're not interested in putting anybody down.
Nor are we interested in theories.
Right.
Theories are something to weave in your spare time that don't really have much to do with reality. They're just where you are at the moment.
That's Phil Lesh, by the way. And what instrument are you in the...
I'm the bass guitarist.
You're the bass guitarist, yeah. And you introduce everybody, Rob, over here.
Rob is one of
You had an interesting thing to say about Toronto. Analogy to California that I thought was rather curious, and I'd like to hear you express it.
I was comparing it to San Francisco in the fact that it was a cosmopolitan kind of city, and that there seems to be more tolerance in this city for freaks such as myself with long hair. We're encountering in Toronto smiles and a more or less friendly attitude at the outset of any relationship or anybody that we meet. More or less, we've got kind of a friendly rapport going on.
The first reaction.
You said freaks such as you, but I think you're being a little facetious. You don't really mean that.
No, I'm now using the word freak in the way we use it around the Chicago airport, for instance.
It's a label like psychedelic music is a label. You know, it's a convenient way to describe something, you know, in a way that people can appreciate. Plus, it's funny. It's a funny word, intrinsically funny. It looks funny on a printed page. You know, all these sharp angles, freaks.
Do you really think the world could get along better if nobody went out and made the articles and created the food
See,
on the table?
the thing is about all that now is that machines are going to be able to do all that very soon. Very soon, it's really clear that automation is taking over. And nobody's going to have to do that at all anymore very soon, by the year 2000, let's say.
So the average guy who gets up at 8 and goes to work at 9 comes home at 5. And
Hasn't he been having more and more leisure time since, say, 1920, and since the Depression, let's say? He's been having more and more leisure time. The machines have been doing more and more. And pretty soon, he's going to have nothing but leisure time. And we're the product of a leisure time generation. We've had lots of
In other words, he's going to have a problem to adjust when he suddenly finds out that those machines are taking over. This is your opinion, and you've just beat him to the draw a little.
Well, already,
we're lucky because we grew up in that.
the kind of work that the 9-to-5er is doing is relatively meaningless to himself. You know, it's not something for his head. It's not something you know that's going to make him grow spiritually or in any way. He doesn't have any love for it. So like if in the old days when people were hand making all these articles and stuff like that, whoever was doing it like had a certain love for the feel of the material and for the thing that they were doing, and so they were doing it. You know, it was their art, you know, their craft, and so it was a better product. You know, now since coffee cups and microphones and everything else are being stamped out, you know, we can turn our you know facility for loving something somewhere else. You know, we can be musicians, we can make movies, you know, do any number of things. But we can do them for ourselves.
There was an old play called You Can't Take It With You, and I think you probably know the one. You've heard the plot and you know it. And that came out in the 1930s. We're beginning to realize how far ahead of its time that little plot structure was, because this actually planted the same psychology.
Have you seen this new movie called The Honey Pot with Rex Harrison?
I know
The hero is a guy who takes it with him.
He takes it with him. Uh-huh. If you can figure that out, then more power to you. That's the next step.
So that's the next step in the myth, right? You can't take it with you. You can take it with you.
You can take it with you or not.
Right.
Is there any religious beliefs in your people of San Francisco, in your particular social structure, social strata?
I would say lots of them, but they don't have the kind of role that religious beliefs have traditionally had in terms of people and the way they think about religion.
Yes, it entails less dogma.
Is there a deity to you? Is there a God?
Yeah.
Lots of them. Lots of them.
A deity is probably a better word than God in this case, in that it encompasses more a feeling than a physical entity or a shape or anything. It's pretty nebulous. There's no shape really to what San Francisco hippies feel is spiritual. It's a feeling that exists between their brothers and their fellows, not a feeling that really exists between the individual and his God, but more manifesting God in his relationship with others. That's where it comes into relationship with us. I mean,
The old
religion
image
is-
of the god of wrath that we used to see in pictures in old biblical stories.
That guy's a dirty old man.
Well, that's a way of expressing it. But, you know, a lot of people still believe this is true today.
Well,
And they live by that code, and they, I think it's a fearful
get what
one
you
in
pay
many
for.
ways.
Well, there was also a god of love. See, there was the god of wrath, like the old,
Jehovah.
yeah, right, god of wrath. You know, an eye for an eye, and then there was, you know, like the Jesus thing.
And those two got
turn the other
combined.
cheek. You know, they're like they're different extremes. Probably have something to do with tribal survival, maybe. But like what's going on now is something different. It's a more, you know, it's like out of both of those things and has both of those elements, but then has some new stuff too.
Well, Christ was a prophet of love. Is there an analogy between the way you feel and the way he did?
all the prophets have been prophets of love. There's
All
never
of
been a
all of
prophet
the great
that
men have
hasn't
been prophets of love in one way or another. They're all talking about the same thing.
They're all talking about man,
Yeah,
essentially.
Right. That's what we're talking about. If we're talking about anything.
All right, let's talk about the music you play now. How does this relate to the philosophies of the new generation that you represent?
In no way. In no way.
Yeah, it's happy. I'm not a musician, but I feel like their music is pretty happy.
I've been
Got a good,
told that there are very accomplished musicians among you and the airplane group. I understand that you are thorough musicians.
the best in the world. The best rock and roll musicians in the world, definitely.
Do you read music?
Sure,
you read
I
a
don't-
score?
Sure.
Do you?
I can read it, write it, take dictation, you name it.
Yeah. All right.
Got some work you want
Take a
done?
tune here. I'll rhyme it off. No, I wanted to know the principle of the music as to, is it written in an original form, or does it merely come by being together and feeding each other ideas?
That's what it's from. It's largely improvisational. And the ideas, like the way we work on our ideas, is not to sit down and write a chart and say, okay, everybody play bars 1 through 93. You know, like we go over the things until they turn into us. You know, just an idea, it starts developing. You know, and pretty soon we have.
I watched something that I think was extemporaneous the other night. You would suddenly, during the course of a selection, which usually goes 7, 8 minutes in many cases, you would look at him, and you would look at him, and you would kind of communicate, and you'd find a kind of a lick or a beat, and then you would evolve around that and watch each other, and the thing
Right.
would develop spontaneously, right?
Right.
This is what occurs?
Sure. And
At that point is where it really gets interesting.
Yeah.
Right.
The rest of it is just work to get to that point.
Right.
Exactly. This is what I see, and I could see expressions in your faces in which you seem to recognize that you hit on something.
Yeah.
Right.
Pretty observant.
It's a matter of.
You must have been sitting up pretty close.
Well, I went like this several times in my ears. The intermission, I tell you, was a relief for a little while because it was something I'd never experienced before.
Well, one critic likened it to the mad scientist scraping on your nerve ending.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. What?
One critic likened it to the mad scientist scraping on your nerve ending.
While a jet plane took off in your inner ear.
Now listen to Tari Horror.
We've got, look, and I've only got a half an hour, but I would have loved to have talked to you longer. I find you the most interesting young man. And may I say the 3, I think, best representatives of the new world of music, and I may say of youthful philosophy that I've had on. Jerome Garcia and Phil Lesh and Rock Scully of the Grateful Dead. And I think 3 of the 5, and that's a pretty good representation at noon on any program, I'll tell you. My best to Pigpen, and what happened to him today?
Sleeping.
He's sleeping?
Sound asleep.
Oh, one thing, before you go. The garb. I can't go because everybody's watching you. The clothes, the hair, how do you reconcile this and why? For instance, if I could describe the colors of the trousers, the jackets, of everything here, you're all individuals. There's not an attempt to even match up in any way.
Well, it's obvious that we can. We're all genetically completely different. It's not as though we were identical triplets or even quintuplets.
But do you dress this way to attract or to create your individualism? Is this why you do
No, it's just you don't have to create your individuality.
You've got it anyway.
This is just how it looks on the outside.
It's just to make it noisy, you know. It's like hollering in a crowd or in an elevator. You know, if you holler in an elevator, everybody turns around and looks at you. You know, it's just something to do.
You know, it's refreshing to have guests on who don't always scream in the morning and say, but I haven't got time to go to my hairdresser. And I have had that problem many times in this program. Fellas, thank you so much for coming along.
Welcome.
We'll be back in 2 minutes from now.